All right, it looks like we are live. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to my live stream today. Today we're going to be taking a look at something that should be pretty quick. We're going to be talking about tool tips, 6 tool tips that everyone should know, and they're pretty good, pretty basic. Some of you probably know some of these already. I would dare guess whether you learned them a long time ago or whether you stumbled upon them recently, or whether or not it's something that you might have even learned but forgotten about. So today we're going to be taking a look at some tool tips for Photoshop. Just let me do one thing real quick and get my display up here where I can see your comments. Let's see, there's one display not showing comments. There it is. And let me mute. There we go. All right, so we are up and running. So I see people on all the platforms. Welcome everyone. Belder, happy Monday, Tom. I see Victoria, I see Steve. I see some folks tuning in on Behance as well. So welcome for everyone that's watching. I also see some folks joining over on Twitter. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in and talk about the things that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing 6 tool tips for Photoshop. And without further ado, happy Monday, by the way, MJ Doris. I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. So I'll switch over to my computer so you guys can see what I'm doing. I've got Photoshop up and running in the background, but I don't have a document open. I don't have an image open. So let's go ahead and get an image open. I'm just going to go ahead and launch just one of my stock images from Adobe Stock here in my library. It doesn't really matter what the image is because this is not about editing. This is more about the tool tips for working with Photoshop no matter what the image is. So the first tip, and this is one that goes all the way back to Photoshop version 1, because Photoshop, of course, hasn't looked like this since the beginning. It's changed over the years. High resolution displays came out, so every single icon had to be recreated from scratch. The background got a dark UI, and of course you can tune it back to a light UI, but it can go all the way dark. So lots of things like that have changed over the years. One of the biggest changes is the tool panel itself. Back in the day when I first started with Photoshop, it used to be this, a double column tool panel, and you can still get back to it by clicking these double arrows up here in the upper left-hand corner. You might say, well, Terry, why would I ever want a two-column tool panel? And you probably wouldn't unless you're working on a lower resolution for your display. So for example, if you're working on a lower resolution display or a big 4K display and you've got things bigger, you might want that second column of tools so that your Photoshop window can be shorter. That's about the only reason I can think of having that. But that's not the real tip here. I'm going to switch back to a single column. The real tip, and actually this is one I stole from a colleague, Julianne Cost. She always makes a joke about this. Since day one in all the Adobe products, the tools have been on the left-hand side and all your panels or palettes have been on the right-hand side. And that, it's not a problem with it, except you're doing ping pong. You're going all the way over here to pick a tool. You're going all the way over here to make a change. You're going all the way back over here to pick another tool or hit a keyboard shortcut, going all the way back over to make a change. You don't have to do it that way. As a matter of fact, right below that 2-column toolbar button is another little bar, this little gray bar of dots. That allows you to actually pick off the toolbar. In other words, pick it up and move it wherever you want. So you can pick the toolbar up, you can have it float wherever you want it, and more importantly, you can dock it over here on the right-hand side. So now everything is over here. You got your full left side for your image, and you can still see all your tools and work with your panels and go back and forth, and it's all convenient for your mouse hand if you're right-handed, or you stick everything on the left-hand side if your mouse hand is your left hand, and then you can work that way. So that's tip number 1. You can adjust the tool panel to your heart's content. It does not have to be across the left side. It does not have to stay on the side. It can float. Used to be able to stick it at the top and the bottom, but that looks like that's gone now. Okay, so I'm gonna put it back over there so I don't freak people out coming into the stream saying, what is this? What application are you in? All right, so we're in Photoshop. Anyway, next up, second tool, and this is a tip that is actually hidden. It's not one that's obvious. And we know that if there is a little arrow underneath a tool, that means that there are more tools. That we do know, that is obvious. But what's not obvious is that not only can you hold that down and see the other tools, we also know that if you just keep hitting the same keyboard shortcut, it will toggle through the tools. But more importantly, you can toggle through the tools. This is tip number 2. You can toggle through the tools just by clicking on the tool itself. So if I hold down my Option or Alt key and click, it cycles to the next tool. Click again. There's only 2 right now, but it'll cycle between those. So let's go to my text tool where I've got more, or my type tool where I've got more tools under there. So Option click, Option click, Option click, Option click, to cycle through all the tools without having to pull out a menu and then go down to a tool. You can just quickly cycle through. So if you like all the different brushes, you can cycle through them just by holding down the Option key. And again, just another way to do it. So lots of ways to do lots of things in Photoshop, but that's yet another way of doing it. All right, great tip. I hate it. Ping pong back and forth. All right, James likes they put the tools on the other side. All right, next up. So that was tip number 2. Tip number 3, and this is one that I use all the time. Like I've been using this for years in Photoshop. Let's say you go in, you pick a foreground color because you're going to paint in that color, draw in that color, work in that color, and maybe you even pick a background color. And of course, let's pick something else. You pick a background color. So now your tool panel is that whatever colors you've set them to. And you can go in and with a keyboard shortcut, you can hit, you can get back to black and white. And no matter what your colors are, you can also toggle them back and forth. So the first tip, if you just want to toggle your foreground and your background to be the opposites of what they are, just hit the letter X. X as in X-ray on the keyboard. And that will just simply toggle them. So now instead of blue as my foreground, blue as my background. If I toggle it, I don't think I'm in your way. If I toggle it some more, it will keep I just keep hitting X and it'll keep toggling back and forth. So that's one. But if you just want to quickly reset the tools, I'm going to stick them over here on the side so you can see what I'm doing again. If you just want to quickly, I was hitting X before. If you want to quickly set them back to their defaults, then just simply hit the letter D for default. And then you can still toggle to get white as your foreground color. So DX or XD for to get back to your default color and to switch it back to toggle them back and forth. All right, next up, that was tip number 3. Tip number 4, and this is one that I've also used for many, many years. You can hide your panels. You can hide just the stuff that may be covering an image or in your way and you just want more image space at any time. Now, Photoshop's still working. Photoshop will still be on the tool you were last on. It's still going to do everything the way it did, but all I did to hide is to hit the Tab key. So the Tab key hides your panels, your tools, and your panels at the same time, and the control panel at the top, just by hitting Tab to toggle it on or off. So if you just want to quickly get rid of everything, just look at your image, hit Tab. Now I'm going to take that up a notch because I don't use this one that often. I've known about it for years, but I don't use it that often. And usually if the tools are missing, it's because I hit Tab by accident. All right, but that's not the one I use all the time. The one I use all the time now is FF or FFF. So in other words, hitting F will take Photoshop through 3 different modes for getting rid of the interface around it. Hitting F again literally gets rid of the interface around it. So you can even go bigger with your image and go full screen. So F being full screen. And then F again puts it back to the way it was. So notice how you probably can't see it because of my lower third. But I can see my dock. I can see my desktop picture underneath Photoshop. Hitting F makes Photoshop fill up the screen. And then hitting F again gets rid of everything. So that way, if I just hey, come over and look at this image. I don't want them to see all the tools. I just hit F, And then they're just looking at the image. They're not worried about what interface I'm in, what tools I'm in. It's a quick way to just hide everything and just look at your image. So FFF, just remember that for full screen, full screen, full screen. All right, next up, and this is one that is fairly new. I am going to bring up an image that I did the other day, as a matter of fact, because it works so well. I'm gonna, let's bring this guy into this image. All right, and we brought him in as a layer, and I'm gonna do, I wanna do some things to this image. I wanna cut out the background, and of course, in the past, I would have done select subject, and I would have done a mask, and I would have done all that. And now there's some quicker options that are on the Properties panel. The Properties panel in Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign is a new panel that keeps getting more and more features that are context sensitive to the tool you're on. So for example, if I go to my Properties panel now, it's showing me the properties for whatever tools or whatever function I'm in right now. So right now I'm not really doing anything, and so it's showing me some basic properties. And also there's not a lot I can do because this is a smart object. So I'm gonna go ahead and say convert this to a layer. In other words, break the link to it from the library. And yep, I'm sure, don't show me that again, by the way. Yes, I'm sure. And then I get some more options, and then I'll start getting options as I start working with the various tools. But when I'm on a layer, here's the thing I brought you over here for, is that there's two buttons that are just quick actions. And that's why I like this, because they are literally quick actions that you can perform without having to find them in the menu, without having to be on the right tool, so forth and so on. So select subject is one. Great, cool. I don't have to be on the quick select tool. I don't have to go to the select menu and choose subject. Boom, I can just click a button and it's right there. But the other one right above it is my favorite because it does two things. So think of that remove background as an action. Because that's really what it's doing. It's doing two things. It's doing select subject, add a mask. That's all it's doing. So for example, if I were to just choose select subject, then we get the marching ants around my subject. Okay, so we're getting the little selection around the subject. All right, so I'm gonna hit Command D for deselect. PC, that would be Control D, but instead, I already know that not only do I want to select the subject, but I also want to remove the background or hide it at least. So if I just one click, remove background, then that will do exactly that. It will remove the background. And now we have a very violent person in our meeting, but flying across the table. But anyway, that is just doing those two things. So select subject and a mask. If we go look at the layers panel, that's all it did. It just applied select subject and applied a mask at the same time. And you can edit the mask, you can change the mask, you can do all of that. Michael South is asking me a question. That's actually a pretty cool tip. So I will answer Michael's question as a tip as well. So Mike's saying, well, what if you, here, let's do it on a different image. Now, that worked well on this person because this person doesn't have any soft edges that need to be refined, like hair. If the person had hair, that would not work very well because we already know what select subject doesn't do well on hair. So let's hide that background for a minute, or that layer. Let's pull this one over where we have a subject with hair. And when you have a subject with hair, let's make it a little smaller and pull her over here. Well, that's not going to work well at all. If I do the same thing, bring up the properties panel, and I were to convert this to a layer, yep, and then I were to say remove background, it's not going to be good because of the hair. So we still see some of the blue interspersed inside of the edges of her hair. So what Michael South's question is could I, now that it's done that for me, go straight to refine edge? Because refine edge would help me with the hair. And the answer is yes, but it depends. It depends on how you have Photoshop to set up as a preference for when you double click on a layer mask. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this with a double click. If I just select the layer mask and I go to my properties panel, I can get to select and mask from there. But I've got mine set up in the preferences that if I just double click the mask, it should take me into refine edge. Oh, Maybe I don't have that preference set up on this machine yet. But anyway, selected mask will take me in there, and then I could use my refine edge brush to eliminate the blue in the hair. As I continue to tweak it, the blue will continue to dissipate and go away, as we can see around the edges. So to answer this question, yes, even though you did it the quick way with the tip number 5, which is the properties panel, and then using that remove background, you can go back in after the fact and still get to selected mask from the properties panel. And if you set your preferences up right, you can even double click the mask to get to your properties, to get to your selected mask quicker. All right, so that was, thank you for the added tip, Michael, for the properties panel. Last but not least, and this is probably the most important thing that you can learn today, if you don't already know this, in working with tools, and that is you no longer have to live with the tools that Adobe gives you by default. For example, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you do in Photoshop, I guarantee you there are tools that either you never use or certainly use maybe once every 3 years. They're just tools you just don't use all the time. So why have a tool panel full of tools that you never use, or worse, tools that you do use buried somewhere, like further down on the tool panel or behind other tools? So tip number 6, and this is the best one. Under your edit menu, if you go down to edit, you've had keyboard shortcuts for years, you've had menus for years, now you have toolbar. So under the edit menu, you can, here, let me put myself out of your way. There we go. You can go to the toolbar under the edit menu, and you can now customize the toolbar to your heart's content. Now, popped open in another window. Here we are. So you can take off tools you don't use. So for example, I think this one is one of my custom ones, but let's say I never ever use the horizontal type mask tool. Well, I can drag the horizontal type mask tool off my tools. So therefore it's just not there. Now, it's not gone out of Photoshop, it's just not on my tool panel anymore. Let's say I use the hand tool often. Well, I can move the hand tool up so it's higher. Now, of course, I'm just holding on a space bar, but if that was a tool that I needed to access quicker, I can move it up. And you'll see it happening in real time. So that tool is right here now. If I move it up above the type tool, then you'll see it jump up above the type tool. So you're seeing your tool panel as you build it. And once you're done, you can save it as a preset so you can always load it back in or even load it into a different machine. So if you're using a different computer and you want to, like, you take all this time to get the tools just right, save it as a preset, it'll save a little file, then you can take that file to your other machine and load it in. And that way you can get the tools looking the way you want. So for example, I don't know if I have it on this machine, but if I say load presets, yep, there's my TW retouching tools. So if I just switch to that one, it'll change the tool panel to be what I like to do with retouching. So it puts my new object select tool at the top. It puts my quick selection tool right below that, puts my spot healing tool. And notice it's broken them out. They're not buried under other tools. They're right there where I can get to them. I use the clone stamp, I use the sharpen tool, I use the marquee tools, I use all of those tools up at the top where I use them all the time. So they're quick to access. Now, let's say you took a tool off because you thought you would never need it, and then that one day you took it off, you need it. So you don't have to go back in and edit it and put it back on. You don't have to do that. But if you just need it for that one off, you've got the ability to go in, and you see this little 3-dot menu here? This little 3-dot menu allows you to get to all the tools you took off the tool panel. So if you need the note tool today, and you never ever use it any other time, you can get to the note tool that you removed off the panel that one time. You need the art history brush. Notice tools I never use. You can get to that tool that one time. If you need the slice tool, slice select tool, that one, yeah, the one I use all the time. you can get to that tool. The count tool, another popular tool that I never ever use. Kidding, it's not popular. All right, but anyway, tools that you took off are still there under a category where you can just get them when you need them, and they're not. So you can make this tool panel really, really short. And more importantly, and this is a bonus tip for number 6, you can create tool panels for the kind of work you do. Like, remember, I just loaded one for retouching. If I was doing digital painting, I could load one for digital painting. If I was doing typography, I could load one for typography. That literally strips off all the tools I don't need, and you can tie your tools to your workspaces. So for example, when I switch to my Terry White retouching workspace, not only does it set the panels the way I need them to be, but it will also load the tools that I need for retouching. So that way I don't have to keep doing both. I can have minimalistic panels for just the things that I need for the type of job that I'm doing, and quickly and easily switch to those as needed. All right, so hopefully you got something out of that, and hopefully that will help you with those quick 6 tools going forward. So with that said, I just want to thank everyone. I was kind of looking at the chat. I didn't really see any questions, but if I missed your question, now's the time. Let me scroll through. Lots of people said nice tips. Thank you, MJ. That was very generous of you. See, I'm excited to be here. Great, great, great. The info needed. Awesome update. Michael South's happy now. He's going to go learn and teach more stuff about this. It's okay. That's epic. Kyle, I don't know which one you're talking about, but I'm glad it was epic for you. Abdul's in the house. What's going on, man? All right. So I think I got everybody. I don't see any questions. If I missed it, just reach out to me on social media. Sorry I missed your question. And with that said, like I said, I'm going to try and keep these shorter and shorter. This one didn't go 40 minutes today. It's down in the 20s, so we're doing better. All right, with that said, cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.